Hi, this is Ed Downs at Aberco Incorporated, manufacturer of Piemaster turn-on machines and dough rollers. In the first introductory video, I said that this series of tutorials is unscripted, and you probably noticed that. So at the beginning of each tutorial, I'll make some corrections I discovered from the last one. This is the fourth tutorial where we're going to cover the fill system. We covered the knife box here and the water sprayer and the knife function in the last video, and we'll cover the transmission and the rest of the fill system in this video. Correction from the last one, I referred to the lock nuts in here as screws, and they're obviously not screws, they're lock nuts. And I also said the reed switch was expensive. I meant to say it is inexpensive. They're a couple dollars a piece. You can get them anywhere, security stores or electronic stores. So anyways, that's that. We'll get up on the ladder here and take a look at the transmission and the rest of the fill system. Okay, referring back to the earlier tutorials, the top solenoid here controls the fill. Air goes through this manifold outside the machine and then comes up through this hose over here, and it plugs into the back of the transmission, just your standard quick disconnect. There are some variations. You may see this hose on some machines are stainless or steel braided. We did that as an option. It's purely an aesthetics thing. A steel braided hose looks really cool. It also costs a couple $100 more than that hose there that works just fine. If that hose ever wears out, it'll cost you about 50 cents to replace it. If you'd like a nice looking stainless or a steel braided hose, we can sell that to you. So the air comes in this case, it's a dual transmission. There's two motors, and the air comes in is distributed to two motors. We require two motors for all fillings other than fruit fillings, just because the density of meat fillings, we want a little more mojo behind the auger to pump that filling out through the bottom of the hopper. There's mufflers up here. The machine is noisy. Without these mufflers, the mufflers work very well, keeping it quiet. I don't know if they have a lifetime on them when they wear out. There's a fabric kind of a filling in there. You can replace probably with just about anything, or you can find these mufflers on eBay or all over the place, and there's various varieties of them. There's normally a housing that goes around this, of course, and that helps keep the noise down as well. So we do have the oil mister, if you recall from the earlier tutorials, that puts a little bit of oil in the line that helps keep the everything lubricated. These motors are serviceable, but you shouldn't have to unless you find a leak where you've lost a seal. And if you've lost a seal, they make rebuild kits for them, but it's probably time to replace the motor. You take these out, and you can get to the oil, service the oil in there with an eyedropper or something. But I don't know if anybody's ever had to do that, to be honest with you. They're sealed up in there. Motors are very reliable. As long as you keep the air as dry as possible, I've seen them go for decades. That's one reason that they got away from the electric motors and went to the air motors, is they're not voltage dependent. For export reasons, but they also are incredibly durable. So the shafts coming out of the motors are tied into this large gear here, which in turn is coupled to the auger. This is a little tough to see, and we'll see it in a different later. There's a coupler right here that slides up, and you just lock it out of the way, and that releases the auger right there. That's what holds it in place. So anyway, so we can get to that later. So that's the auger, and there's a push plate there that we'll talk about, that the adjustment of that is critical. And we'll look at the auger outside the machine. The hopper is very heavy. It's a very robust piece. The transmission is held in place. On these ends, there's a locating pin here, and on the other side, there's the same. There's a locating pin and this thumb screw. You take the thumb screws out, and then you'll lift the whole transmission off, which we'll demonstrate also. another video. Underneath, I don't know if I can do this where you can see it. The location of the transmission is adjustable. You can move it around on those these mounting shafts here, which I hope you're able to see that. But we'll look at that on the bench as well. The adjustment of that is critical because it controls where the auger, how the auger fits inside the chute at the bottom, which is critical. So you're not rubbing the side of the tube when the auger turns. If this is adjusted wrong, you can scrape the sides of the hopper, and we've had that happen. And you will actually put metal into pies. And we had a customer who had to recall thousands of pies because they weren't checking that every day and making sure that there wasn't, that it wasn't contacting anything. We'll get in the adjustment of that in one of the last tutorials, the final setup stuff before you operate the machine. Other than that, that's what's up here. Let's see, there's also, this is a bearing cap. There's a bearing underneath there that you can see where that gear, there's the shaft the gear rides on. None of this stuff wears out very readily because, the machine cycles once and then stops, and then it cycles once and then stops as you're making pies. So it's not a continually running motion. So all the bearings and all those kind of things last for decades in these machines because they're not, being continually turned. So that's a nice thing because it requires less maintenance. So down here at the other end of the hopper, we come down to the depositor tube, as we call it. This knurled nut right here unscrews, and inside there's an orifice. Here's what one looks like. There's various sizes that we bore them to depending on how much filling you're depositing with the molds. So if you're making a couple or several different size pies, you might need to change orifices in between as you change these mold sets. So a smaller pie would require a smaller opening, a bigger opening, pretty straightforward. You cannot change the orifice or take this knurled nut off while the hopper's installed on the machine. You have to take the hopper off the machine because the knife does not retract fully out of the way. If it did, you'd be setting yourself up to damage it for sure. So you do have to remove the hopper to change the orifice and to get the nut off that holds it in place. The hopper's held on with this handle, a T-handle that closes this bracket. Once the hopper is in place up here, resting on this collar, even with the collar open, it's very stable. You can hold it in place with just finger pressure as you close the collar and lock it down tight. And that, I believe, is about everything as far as the components and what they do. Again, when the knife is retracted and the magnet closes that reed switch, it sends a signal to start turning the auger. When the timer runs down on the auger, air is ported to the closed side of the knife closes, breaks contact with that reed switch, which shuts off the auger from turning, and that ends the fill cycle. All right, in the next video, we'll pick up the roll and the conveyor.